Welcome back to the Autism Little Learners Podcast. I'm your host, Tara, and I am really excited's not the word to bring you this topic, but it's so crucial and it's so important. We're talking about water safety, autism, and the high rates or the high likelihood of children drowning. And it's happening all over the country. And I brought in two amazing people that work with childhood safety on a variety of topics, but today we're talking specifically about water safety. And the scary reality that too many families face, drowning is the leading cause of death for autistic children. And so today we're going to talk about what we can do to change that. And, a lot of it can be traced back to elopement or wandering, but we're going to talk about all of that and all the things. But I want to first introduce Dayna from Water Safety with Miss Dayna. Can you introduce yourself, Dayna?
Good. I guess it's morning. We're all still in morning. So yes, my name's Dayna Harvey. I am the owner of Water Safety with Miss Dayna. I have been teaching swimming lessons and water safety for 35 years. And about the last 25 years have been working with children with autism and their parents. I've created some programs. The main one is called Where There Is Water, I Will Wait. And then I have created a tool for parents to use within that program called the Wading Whales Water Safety Kit. So I'm very much excited to have this discussion today. Hopefully bring some more, I don't want to say awareness, because I think we're all pretty aware. But I really want to educate parents. I want to empower them so that you can feel confident in keeping your children safe in and around water. There's a lot of I believe, misconceptions or myths out there that have lulled parents into this false sense of security. And, I don't want to bust those open, but I want to have a discussion about those and then give you really real, relevant, and implementable information because we've got to stop this epidemic of children with autism drowning. It's got to
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you. And Andy from the Institute of Childhood Preparedness, he's my buddy. We've collaborated on a lot of things. Can you introduce yourself and kind of talk about what you do with childhood safety?
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having us. It's great to be here. Such an important topic. So I'm Andy. I'm the owner and founder of the Institute for Childhood Preparedness. We're an organization that works every day to keep early childhood programs as safe, secure, and prepared as possible. So we look at a wide range of threats, everything from, fires, floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, even active shooters, as scary as that is. But I was really excited to hear about the topic and hope to put a big spotlight on this because this is one of the issues that I don't think we're really getting enough attention on. And we'll talk today, hopefully, about some really important and actionable tips that we can use to prevent these kind of tragedies from occurring, because these are pretty preventable if we have some good framework to go by. So thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. It's so wonderful to continue our collaboration. We've done so much over the years, and just so happy and so proud of all we've been able to do together.
Yeah, I agree. And what I'm excited about with this discussion is being able to point parents and educators in the right direction, because sometimes an educator is the conduit to parents with information. And so just knowing some of the stats, and Dayna, you can probably speak more on these, but autistic children are 160 times more likely to die from drowning than their neurotypical peers. And wandering incidents, approximately 50% of autistic children have a tendency to wander or elope from their safe environments, and many times they gravitate towards water. So, why, to both of you, if you know, do you have any other stats, or why are autistic children at higher risk for drowning?
You
Maybe
want to go
Dayna, you
first,
start.
Andy? Who do you want to go first?
You go ahead, Dayna.
I don't. I feel that a lot of it comes from our children with autism being risk driven and not having any kind of real impulse control. That kind of internally. But again, there is not an emphasis truly on water safety education, like giving parents a list of things to do. Like no child, I don't care if they're neurotypical or not, they don't know instinctively that water is dangerous for them. So we have to use some different learning styles, some different teaching tools to be able to do that. But, I've said from the very beginning is that drowning is not a childhood problem or a child problem. It is an adult problem. So, we can talk about why children are eloping and going and, water is sparkly and blah, all these things that draw them to it. But in the end, let's talk about how do we keep them from going into it. And that is where parents and educators become a vital part of this ending this health crisis that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything to add on that, Andy?
Well, I just think there's a lot of stuff going on here. If you look at the fatal wandering cases that are out there, 90% of them actually involve water. So when we're thinking about if something bad happens as a result of someone wandering, this is probably going to be the end result. So we've got to keep that in the back of our mind. At the same time, drowning is already the leading cause of death in children age 1 to 4. So we've got those kind of two pieces of data just, painting this really horrible story. And as the proud father of a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, gosh, you take your eyes off these kids for 1 second and they're sticking fingers in sockets and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, right? So, and it's not, hard to understand. I mean, I'm a firefighter paramedic turned attorney. And one of the phrases that we use in the law is called an attractive nuisance, right? So if you have a carousel, one of these kind of crazy carnival rides on your property, it's an attractive nuisance because it's necessarily going to attract people to your property and probably use those, crazy carnival pieces of equipment. In the same regard, we think about water. It's an attractive nuisance, right? I mean, it's sound is kind of cool and calming and bubbly and motion and pressure and all this kind of weird stuff that kids are fascinated by, just by the way, like fire too. But at the same time, as Dayna kind of already mentioned, like kids are not going to understand the risk. They're not going to understand how deep that water is, how rapid that water's moving, maybe how cold that water is. We think just about drowning in the summer, but look in Wisconsin and Minnesota and all those great places in the Midwest. They get really cold in the winter. And we see, sadly, kids falling through ice and those types of incidents as well. And the same thing when we think about our autistic friends, we know that sometimes communication can be a real challenge too. And, that can manifest in many different ways, but it could even be as simple as just crying for help and needing to, express that, hey, I'm in danger here or something's not going right. So I think 100% echoing what Dayna said, this is not a child problem. This is not coming from defiance or a bad kid. This is often coming from a place of curiosity. And I think we do need to keep that in mind in our discussions today, and especially for the parents. This isn't, again, they're going out to get you or be a bad kid. This is really kids being kids, right? And kids are supposed to explore their universe and their world. And it's up to us as the adults in the room to make sure that is as safe as possible. So just a couple of thoughts as we kick off. But when it really dig into the statistics here, it's just heartbreaking to see, how much of a tragedy this truly is. And again, you hate to see things like this and deaths in hot cars and other things, vehicular deaths that are, pretty much nearly 100% preventable. So that's important to focus on too. Let's try to prevent this tragedy from ever occurring.
And
really
what Andy
good
said,
points.
what Andy was saying just about the kids not, doing this out of defiance or any of that. I also want to look at the parents and say to you, this is, there is no judgment. I mean, kids elope that fast. And, I use an analogy sometimes of a mom sits down at the kitchen table for 5 minutes, scrolls through her phone, puts away groceries, whatever, walks into the living room, and her child has taken a black Sharpie marker all over themselves, all over the TV or the carpet, and they take a video of that, post it on social media, and we all get a good giggle out of it. The same thing can happen with a mom sitting at her dining room table for 5 minutes with a child with autism. She walks into that living room and the back door is open and her child is nowhere to be found, right? The police are called, the TV stations arrive, and her child is found in a retention pond. So there is no making a video and laughing about that. It's only judgment, right? People are, that's a terrible parent. This is not about being a terrible parent at all in any way, shape, or form. And please don't think that when I say drowning is an adult problem, that it's a judgment. because that nonsense has to stop as well. They just were on the end, the bad end of a life-threatening situation. They didn't get to make a video and we laugh about it. But
Yeah.
the exact same thing, I call it a lapse in watching, the same thing happened with both of those moms. One
Yeah.
we laugh at and the other one we judge, to the
Yeah.
point that they say they should go to jail. So parents, we've got your back on this. And I think that's why we're here to do this today.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because I don't want any parent to take away that any blame or like they should
No.
have done more, because we have all with our children been in a situation where boom, they're gone in like, and I feel like with autistic kids, it's quieter and faster. I don't know. So I feel like the outcome with the strategies we're going to share is like adding in those extra layers of protection based on your child's disability. So
Yes.
even if you're like, well, they haven't wandered before, we want to have these things in place ahead of time,
Yes.
just in case, because those split seconds are crucial. And
It's
so
like they know.
yeah.
It's like they know you've gone to brush your teeth or to go
Yeah.
pee, and that's their time to go and search
Explore.
out what it is they were looking for.
Yeah.
I had a parent who said that they're over Christmas in their community, the entryway, they had a fountain, but they lit it up with lights. And she said, I mean, we would drive by and you could just see her like there. And she was like, I knew that we had to do whatever it took, because somehow they remember where those things are and they're going to get to them because they have put that much attraction for them. So, we can, please, parents, never say never. Never say never about any of this. Please don't say, well, my kids are never around water without me, or let's just always go with the assumption that 100% of the time they will try to get to water. Let's just go with that and err on that side of caution rather than on the never, it's not going to happen.
Right. And, we don't want to instill fear,
No.
but because of the high incidence, it's just, something that's not talked about enough that we have to bring to the forefront.
And
when
I
you're
think
saying
fear is where we're at right now. Like if you are on any of these parenting forums or whatever, fear is where we are at. So doing something like this, I want education and empowerment. I don't want you to be fearful around water. I don't want you to think, oh, I can't ever take my kids there. I want to help you go to the beach and go, yes, I am in control and I know how to keep my child safe. Fear is the opposite of what we want here today.
100%. I mean, the motto for my company is don't be scared, be prepared, right? So, but I think we get to that spot of preparedness by really being honest about the risks.
Yes.
And, or obviously you say drowning and it pops in your head like, oh, swimming pools and the neighbor's house and the lake. I mean, let's be really specific when we think about the risk assessment. You look at a 1-year-old or even a toddler, an inch of water is all it takes. That's why prevention's not just about pools and lakes. I mean, we need to think about bathtubs and buckets and toilets and even, things that are filled with rain after a heavy rainfall. The risk is real. And obviously the vigilance that we need to enact, has to be real too. So hopefully nobody's getting afraid by it. I think it's just a real honest conversation. And unfortunately, so many things in society now, we only see in a reactive nature. And I appreciate, getting the group together here, because I think this is more of a proactive stance. Yes, there's been a tremendous amount of tragedies. Before you face a tragedy, let's do some proactive things and let's figure out, what that really looks like. And the good news is, and I know Dayna's got a lot of great resources to share, but, the good news is most of this stuff is free or little cost. So, we're not asking you to go out and spend thousands of dollars to be more, water safe and water smart.
Yeah. Good point. So Dayna, in your swim lessons that you teach, how do autistic kids in your eyes tend to interact with water?
So I don't know that it's really much different sometimes. I would say I put my program into 2 different categories. We handle the out of water safety stuff, and then we handle the in the water stuff. So out of the water, that's when we're dealing with the lack of impulse control or the need for the sensory seeking. Like, I like how the water feels around my body, or I like to look at its sparkling and its splashing. So we deal with all of that. And truly, a lot of children, neurotypical, neurodivergent, have not been taught rules and boundaries around water. They have been given what I call inappropriate independence around water. And a lot of that has to do with life jackets. I am not against life jackets in any way, shape, or form. I do talk to parents about some guidelines if we're going to use them, especially in a pool, like in uncontrolled water, lakes, pond. That is a non-negotiable ever. They're in them all the time. If you are on a boat, in them. I don't even want to talk about that. Where the controversy starts is whether or not you wear them in a pool. Okay, I was a mom. I had 3 children under the age of 5. I do this for a living. My kids wore a device. Not all the time. So I'm not going to sit here and say, don't ever put your kids in a life jacket because it does all these things. But what I am going to tell you is that when you put a life jacket on your child and allow them to go into water, while you sit on a deck chair on your phone, you have given them inappropriate independence to water. And so that you can watch them 10 times with a life jacket on. It'll be the 11th time when you've had lunch and they forgot that they had it on and they go back in the water and we have a drowning incident happen. Okay, so you cannot. So I use in my program, we establish when water is open, when water is closed. We talk about an invitation into water, not permission. Mm-hmm. Unless you have a skill set to save your life and are a strong swimmer, you're never receiving permission. So I tell parents, unless you're willing to get in the water, don't go. Like when I teach lessons, I get in and then I individually invite each child to come and join me on the side of the pool. They are never allowed in water without me being in there. And we talk about it every day. I mean, my kids would never. Again, neurotypical, neurodivergent, they all get that same education. So, there is an outside component to water safety and drowning prevention that has nothing to do with the actual water or being in the actual water. Then in the water with my program, I teach, survival skills. So we jump in, we roll on our back, we can get ourselves back to safety. So back floats are a big thing. And so you get kids that come into the program that are extremely uncomfortable and anxiety ridden around water. And then other kids are like, yeah, I got this. Come on, let's go and do that. A lot of parents, especially with children with autism, say, oh, my child's afraid of the water. I have a hard time with that because unless they have had an incident that has precipitated fear, it's not fear. It's an unknown, it's new, it's, it produces anxiety because of the, I'm away from my parent or, all of those things. Or we don't like water in our ears or on our eyes. That's not fear. That is just a new situation that we've got to work through. Because again, if a child falls into water, they're going to get water in their ears. They're going to get water in their eyes. We have to help them through those hard, uncomfortable layers or foundational skills to get to the skills in the water that save their life. But so much of it, I'd say 90% of what I do for these families has nothing to do with actually being in the water.
Wow. I love how you delineate those two in the water.
And most swim programs don't. Like when people say to me, I said, what are you learning about for water safety? And they're like, oh, well, my kids know how to jump in and roll on their back. I'm like, no, that's swimming lessons. That's a swimming skill. What do you know about water safety? Like, yeah. And they're like, well, I guess I know nothing. And again, my industry has allowed all of this to continue. That's infuriating a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I want parents to know there are 2 separate components, and whatever program you are in, you've got to be asking those questions. And if you are in a program that just is doing swim lessons, those skills, come and see me, come and talk to me, because I'll take care of helping you navigate the rest of that water safety umbrella.
Awesome. And especially for autistic children, some of the traditional methods of teaching either one of those things are not always going to work. And so adding in visual supports, predictable routines, and that kind of thing. And I know from what I've seen with your program, you have things like that. And I think we'll jump into that a little bit later. But Andy, what
Are we really gonna? Because I didn't bring it. I'm gonna go over there and get it and bring it back.
Okay, you do that. You do that. And I was going to ask Andy a little more along the lines of elopement and wandering, and like, what does that look like in various settings? Because you talk about, I think you called it a risk assessment or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we work in a lot of different environments, everything from, really big, large, 200 plus children childcare centers to smaller centers, Head Start centers, even, family providers who are caring for kids in their homes. And, a lot of the stuff is kind of the same. I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to make redundancy here, right? Because with any emergency, we don't want that single point of failure. So as we've kind of already alluded to today, we can't just say, well, this is all on the kid, right? And if the kid doesn't know how to swim, then we've done all we can and throw our hands up in the air. So we're looking at, layering those skills, right? So, what kind of, physical skills, environmental barriers can we create? What kind of communication? What kind of protocols? The stop, you have to be invited in, as Dayna was just talking about. And even something as simple as a risk assessment. So, one of the things to think about, 68% of these fatal incidents don't happen in swimming pools. They happen in ditches and small ponds and small streams and other, what we would kind of classify as natural water. So again, don't just think, oh, I don't have a swimming pool, I'm okay. Nah, that's not the right approach. So whether you're a parent, whether you're a family child care provider, whether you're a big, center-based program, I would encourage you to really walk the property. Look at any kind of water hazards that may exist within at least 1,000 feet of your program, right? Really get to know your area, get to know your neighborhood. If the kids, heaven forbid, they get out, what are those hazards that are nearby? Because if we have that identified ahead of time, that's going to be a big help. Hopefully we can maybe mitigate it, or if we can't mitigate it, at least then we know, gosh, if a kid goes out, these are some really high stress, high priority areas we need to be checking right away. Another thing, and it's hard in some of this stuff because even in like the active shooter stuff, sometimes we have safety that fights safety. And one of the biggest things we're concerned about, from a fire department standpoint is egress, being able to get out of your building. And, we've been worried about that since the horrible fire in Chicago, Illinois, the Our Lady of Angel fire that killed 91 students and 3 or 4 nuns because of locked exits and blocked exits and non-functioning exits and improperly marked exits and all of this. That was really the genesis, my hometown, by the way, of why we have fire codes and do these fire drills every month. We still have about 560 fires in child care programs every year, so it's almost 2 a day. But those are important things. But I'm bringing that up because what we have now is we've got this safety kind of fighting safety. So what we have to be cognizant of is pretty much every external exit's going to have an easy way to get out. And oftentimes we have those push bars, right? The push bar panic bars that you just press and then boom, the door opens. And while that's great for fires, it's not so great if you have a kid that keeps reaching up and pressing that silly thing and then the door just quickly pops open. And boy, I was one in New York City a couple weeks ago, and literally you pop that door open, you're on a 5-6 lane street right in front of the child care program. So again, we think about layering, right? Making sure that we have alarms and alerts and chimes and bells and all this. And by the way, you can do this at your house too. I've got pretty much all the high priority doors in my house. I've got alarmed and alerted. Nobody's coming in or out without at least hearing a visual or an audio cue rather, kind of letting us know. So those are some things like identify those water hazards, see if you can do anything about them, at least become more aware of them. Put door chimes on your exits. I would include that also in your playground, for the child care programs. If you have playground gates that are easy to open or easy to access, I would also put some chimes on there. You basically don't want to get in a situation where somebody's opening a door or a playground gate and you don't have any notice about it because, as we've already mentioned, that's kind of the thing that can lead to bad things. So just having that awareness, kind of doing that risk assessment, being more familiar with the risks that you actually have nearby, I think can be really helpful in these types of situations.
Gosh, I am so glad that you said that, because the piece about safety kind of getting in the way of safety,
Yeah.
that has been one of the most difficult things to navigate in my 25 years in the classroom. And if you're a special educator listening to this, you are nodding your head going, yes, you are so right. How many times have I said, can we just get some kind of little lock just on my classroom door? There's always an adult in here, more than
Right.
one adult. You know, we're highly staffed or higher staffed usually than a gen ed classroom. Our kids, especially when they're, well, it could be any age, it's not just the young kids, but I can't even count or estimate how many times a child has eloped or wandered from my classroom. And sometimes it's a kid running where you notice and you see, and sometimes it's very quiet. And it's so scary for everyone. Um, and like you said, there's never a plan. Now that you're saying this, I worked in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. There were lakes and rivers everywhere, not to mention all the smaller bodies of water that you're talking about. We never had a plan for maybe where to go first preventatively if a child, when they get out. It happens every year in every school district multiple times. So if you knew you had people to go to, you know, the closest body of water and just be there, even if the child didn't go that way, someone's there watching. Never thought of that. Okay. And I mean, a chime, yes. When I was at the elementary level, we couldn't put, like, no one ever lets you put a lock. And so we had these bells hanging down. It wasn't anything fancy. So every time the door opened, these bells would chime. And that really, really did help. So it's like both of you are saying, these layers of protection. It's not one thing. The bell's not going to be the only thing that's going to prevent the wandering and then a drowning, but it's one piece. So thank you for mentioning that. It's really important.
Just briefly, I know this is going to not necessarily go off topic, but wasn't
Yeah.
on my list of things to talk about.
Yeah.
I have created what I call a community communication page.
Mm.
I did this with one of my local families. They had a community of about 10 to 12 houses. And we created a document where they went to each house to say, hey, my child has autism.
Yeah.
This is who she is. She is prone to elopement. Is there a way, would you be willing to give me your cell phone number? And then created a group text within her community so that if she ever eloped, you know, of course, you're calling EMS, but the next text is to your group to say, hey, please check your property. It, you know, for even bigger communities that have a pool in their backyards or a hot tub, that will go to check water first wherever we are, because honestly, by the time EMS arrives, you can already have your community warriors out there looking for your child with one group text. So we did that, and so I'm getting ready to update that page, and I'll make it available to anybody that wants to go to, just go to the website and ask for it. But the other thing now that we are adding to it is for like a developed community that has retention ponds, and this kind of came from a group in Florida. You can get a map of the community and you can go door to door and you can find out who has a pool, who has a hot tub, where are the retention ponds, is there a creek that backs on that, so that when EMS arrives, you hand them that and they can disperse and go immediately to where water is. Again, closest to your home. But I mean, we know that kids, they're fast. They must practice running or something, because I don't know how they get so far in such a short amount of time. But again, like Andy was saying, we have to be prepared for this. So if you can hand your EMS people this piece of paper, it says, here's where all the water is. We're going here, you go there. Because honestly, in the moment of that kind of a scary situation, I don't care who you are, all your greatest plans have left your mind.
Yeah.
You're not going to be, well, here you are, here's the piece of paper. We need to have that action plan written down and be set in stone. Another family took that when they went on vacation, because they were going to the beach where there was water, and normally there was not water around them. So again, they didn't have a map of the area other than just the beach, but they went to each of the people that were in the rentals around them to let them know. And again, these are strangers. You're not ever going to see them again, but you must employ them if your child ever gets out. And so, that's just been a really successful way for parents to, one, educate people in their community about autism and about their child, but two, then also develop this group of warriors that are going to be your first point of contact. They will be boots on the ground before the EMS will even arrive there. So that's, again, one of the things that I really encourage parents to do. And through the program that I developed, that's what one of the tools that I encourage parents to use.
That's just an awesome tool and easy, right?
Yes.
Little work on the front end, but then you have it and it's ready to go. And I think it just reminds me of students I've had in the past. Many years ago, back when we had VHS and DVDs, I had 2 students in my program that were in the elementary level, and they wandered out of their home quickly, awesome, super involved parents, but it's that split second. And both of them at different times wandered out of their house, and they were found in a neighbor's home looking through their DVDs, looking for the Disney movies or whatever. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's their deep interest.
Yeah.
They know from probably going into enough homes, most homes had a collection. So they just checked the door and went in, and both of them are non-speaking. So when neighbor or someone finds them, it's like, what's going on? Like, this kid's not talking and he's looking through my DVDs. And so that's where that neighborhood piece, because they weren't far away, they were in the neighborhood, but in someone's house, if you went and started looking around, you wouldn't find your child. So again, why it's important to have that community neighborhood involvement when possible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've all, seen the news stories too. And like Andy said, kids aren't eloping and wandering out of defiance. It's curiosity. Mm-hmm. And you said that too, Dayna. It's to find something they love or something soothing, or, they a lot of times I think have in their head, I think both of you said, where they want to go. It's that colorful fountain or, something that is
It sparked their attention. It's got their attention, and they, when they hyper focus, they can't do anything with it until they get to it and get that end result of whatever it is that they're looking for. But they will pursue and pursue and pursue until that actually happens.
Yeah. And I think so far when we've talked about kind of the risk assessment, developing a tool like you're saying with the neighborhood. We've talked about layers of protection. So locks of some type or chimes in the home. There's probably little alarms, Andy, that aren't expensive anymore that would go off if a door is opened. Thoughts on
you can
that?
get them on Amazon very cheap. And also for those, individuals that have pools, there's those special pool alarms where if, they sense a ripple or a current or someone falling in the water, they'll go off too. So those are relatively inexpensive. I know some people even use them for their dogs who can't swim, right? Yeah. But it's great to have that extra layer of protection. Again, we don't want to be reliant on technology because batteries can die and not work and stuff. But, I think at this point, any little piece we can add to the puzzle does make us a little bit more safer and a little bit more prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. And both of you, any other thoughts on like the wandering elopement piece? Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you can think of?
No, I mean, I like you had kind of alluded to, I do have a tool that we can talk about it kind of down the way, because I know we still got a lot to get to, but the most effective strategy that I have found has been where there's water, I will wait. Wait is a really tough concept for children with autism. And, they don't need it just around water. We use it in parking lots. And, when we're going out to the playground, we use wait and we use tactile tools. When I was on my road trip last year, there was one preschool that I went to that actually had handprints on the wall, like down the corridor, by the front door, and then they had another set of handprints on the other side of the door. So when the teacher had them, they were all ready. They matched their handprints up, and then the door opened, and then they had to take themselves out and put their hands on the prints outside of the entry door as well. And it's funny because that's really a lot of the concept of what I use as well. So
that's so smart.
We've got to be teaching them to wait. We've got to be teaching them when water is open and closed and when it's appropriate for them to be in and when it's not appropriate for them
Yeah.
to be in the water.
That hand strategy actually reminds me of something that intuitively I did with me and my best friend with our daughters when they were little. Whenever we'd get out of a vehicle in
Yes.
the parking lot, we'd sing, hands on the van, hands on the van, hands on the van. And they'd put their hands
Yeah.
on the van and wait till we were ready to walk in.
See, and
It was like
I guess
predictable routine.
that, well, and this is what really kind of has dismayed me through all of this, is that we do use these kinds of words, like when we go from the front door of the grocery store. We don't just put our kids in an orange vest and say, good luck, I'll meet you at the car. Like,
Yeah.
we use words like stay here, hold my hand, go with me. We, to keep them safe.
Yeah.
And yet
Wait.
around water, we do not use those words. I don't know where the disconnect is, but I mean, I'm going to keep talking about it, because when I say it, parents are like, oh yeah, we'd never really thought about it that way. So for as diligent as we are about road safety or car seat safety, those are still not the number one killer of children in this country. It is drowning.
Wow.
And we're orange vest in the pool, all the best.
Mm-hmm.
You're
right.
We've got to be thinking about it differently every single time we get around water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And going back to kind of the elopement, again, we talked about that community plan. I mean, I think a key piece of that is having those contacts ahead of time, having a photo of your child.
Yes.
So many programs I work with, like, we have all the software in the world now. We have all the cameras on our phones and everything. Like, take pictures. So if heaven forbid a kid goes missing in this case or any emergency, you've got a recent photo of what they look like. Super important. It can really make the difference before you dispatch all your community guardians.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's what the kid looked like. And if you can remember what they looked like that morning, what they wore, that's a big plus too. The other thing I was kind of thinking about is just also the visual cues. And it's certainly not going to work, 100% of the time, but, things like even as simple as a stop sign on a door or those floor markers or colored tape. I know we do that a lot in the kitchens to prevent kids from reaching up and getting burned on hot stoves. Oh, I got it. There you go. Dana's got it.
I have a couple colored tapes.
Okay,
Good.
I can't wait for you to show us.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, again, we're looking for low cost solutions, but those visual reminders of, oh, I got to stop, I got to wait, or I don't go out this door. Those visual boundaries can sometimes give something to anchor kids to, right? And then they not only hear the verbal, but they got the visual, they got maybe a reminder that can go on. So, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to offer, predictability and high stimulation or unfamiliar settings, again, to our early childhood and our childcare friends out there. Transitions are tough times.
Yes.
I think more than ever, this whole conversation we're having reinforces the fact that we should do face counts and ratio checks more than just once a day. I mean, I know programs that do them every half hour or every hour. Just simply, do you have all your kids? Are they accounted for? Do you know where they're at? Especially if you're, traversing from the playground to inside or the lunchroom or neighborhood walk or whatever. Super, super important. And for our bus drivers as well. I mean, again, you think about other tragedies and how many kids are just left in the bus at the end of the morning when they forget to check the bus. I mean, it's but same kind of a principle here. Checking the bus, making sure every kid you picked up is actually accounted for. We used to say a head count, but I can mistake a head. I can't mistake a face. So now it's a face count, right? But these types of things I think are just super important when we're thinking about that whole elopement and accountability and all those really important pieces.
Yeah.
And when it comes to water, I encourage parents, how at the end of the night we go through, make sure all the lights are off, all the doors are locked, all those kinds of things. That becomes a habit for us. I want parents to, especially when you have, and again, I'm not talking about a pool in your backyard. I'm talking about if you have water within maybe like a 30 minute radius. I don't know. Like I said, they get there fast. I don't know how they get there, but, so that if you live in an apartment complex, that you make it part of your nightly routine to make sure if you've got a pool on property that you've gone to make sure that gate is locked. I know that's not your job. I know that's not, but all it takes is for a pebble to get stuck in between the actual gate and the locking system. Nobody's doing it on purpose, But that's all it takes for that gate to not lock securely. You want to make sure that if you do have a pool in your backyard, you've gone and made sure that any climbable thing is not close to the fence. Pile them up. If they're light tables, you got to get that stuff out of there. You cannot, because in the middle of the night, again, kids can get to places. So create a nightly routine that goes through and checks all the windows, all the doors. Go to your neighbors. If they've got a pool, make sure their gate is locked. Not that they wouldn't do it, but that's not necessarily their priority. It is yours. So establish those habits. I love that, Andy. Just go through, where are your children? And make sure that all of the things that could cause them to not be there in the morning are locked and secured and ready to go. And with alarms and stuff, I always say anything that requires human interaction is fallible. There have been plenty of drownings of children that their backyard pool has a fence, it has a gate, it had an alarm on it, and multiple things have failed at the same time. And that's, you can't predict that, but just know that if it requires a human to have to help navigate it, again, let's go with 100% of the time it will fail.
Right.
And,
so those
and come up with
added
other
layers. Yeah.
And have other things happening to mitigate when or if that actually does happen.
Yeah. Let's move into talking about some of the tangible things that we can use, like out of the pool things, like visuals. So if you guys are listening on the podcast, like Spotify or Apple, head over to YouTube so you can watch this, because Dayna's going to show a couple of visuals that she uses.
Yeah. So I have created something called a water safety kit. It came from working with a little boy named Jackson, who was 3 at the time. He's 10 now. But I don't teach private lessons. I only teach small group lessons. So Jackson was nonverbal. He was an eloper. He had 0 aversion to risk, and he had no impulse control. So he checked all the boxes and he sought the sensory stimulation. So he checked all the boxes for, hey, I'd like to drown. That's what his parents said to me when they came to me after a referral from a local doctor. So I had to come up with a way to keep him at the side of the pool, not putting himself in or eloping off to wherever he felt like he needed to go. So I used a blue kickboard. I had 2 of them, one on the starting side and one on the ending point. And I taught Jackson to wait. Parents like, there's no way. I'm like, come watch it in action. It's the most amazing thing that children, when they are required and taught how to wait, that they can absolutely do it. So it didn't happen overnight. At first, I had to employ Jackson's parents. So they stood behind the kickboard. So Jackson's direction was Jackson on the blue mat, and then he would sit and he could stim, he could splash, whatever he needed to do, as long as he didn't stand up off of that mat. If he did, his parents redirected him and we sat back down and waited. So he was learning to wait, to not go in water, but then he was waiting for an invitation from me when I came back. Okay. So we had this blue kickboard, and it went with them home around the bathtub. The bathtub is a water environment that is in your home, and it is a dangerous one. Okay. It is the #1 site of drowning for children under the age of 1. And when your child knows how to turn on the faucets and the handles, now you have a drowning hazard in your home.
So, and a burn hazard too, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. For children that don't feel pain, absolutely. It is that. So the mat went home with them. So it became known as the waiting mat. That's what it became known as. They went to the beach with them. It went to the community pool with them. Anywhere where Jackson had access to water and needed to wait, it went with him. That was component #1. So the water safety kit comes in this awesome box with my whales on it. And the first component became a waiting mat. And this is what it looks like. Oh. So it's a blue kickboard material, so it's waterproof, can't ruin it. This is Wilson. All my whales have W names, but this is Wilson. Wilson has autism. He is my superhero of all of my whales. He is my representative of all the children in this community. So, and the board says, I will wait. So that was number one of what went into the water safety kit. The second tool came from working with a family who had 3 children, 2 neurotypical children and 1 with autism, and they bought a house with a pool. In the pool, the property was fenced, but the pool was not fenced. And we live in a place where that, at that point, was not a requirement. There's no bylaws on that. So we had to create something to keep them from going from the back door into the pool. So we created a waiting area. So at first I used blue painter's tape, taped out this big long area, and it was big, and it was in the direct path of the door to the pool. So we weren't going to forget that it was there, or we weren't going to be able to bypass it without a bit of guilt that we were stopping there. It was like a checkpoint, right? So we went from door to waiting area to pool later. So the blue painter's tape. So the blue painter's tape, again, over time, has turned into this blue barricade tape. So it says, I will wait here. It's not sticky because water and sticky stuff don't go together very well. But so parents utilize this. Let's say we go to the beach and we can mark out the area on the beach where we're going to be. You can put your adult chairs in it or not. You can set it up just for the kids. So the tape and their mats go in it, along with all their sand toys. That becomes the place that they are until they are given a different set of instructions or an invitation to let's go leave. Okay, so that was part 2. Then a third part came in because I needed to teach this concept of open water and closed water. So we started with orange pylon street cones, about 2 feet back from the side of the pool, all the way around the pool, and we used just twine. Well, that wasn't very visually effective. So then I used yellow caution tape. Well, yellow, I don't know. I don't like it. It's not my favorite color. But that's what we utilized. And so I'll run you through the scenario. So we open the back door. Children go to the waiting area. They sit on their waiting mats. Parents go beyond, and they open the pool. And children are watching this. This doesn't just magically happen. I needed the children to see that parents or adults open the pool and they're the only ones. If all of that is closed, you don't get to open it. You don't get to go beyond it because it's closed to you. So parents would open, get prepared, got the toys or whatever the things they needed, got in the pool, and then made the invitation to the children to leave their waiting mats to come into the pool. And again, 2 neurotypical children needed this training as much as 1 child with autism. It's the same. I don't care. Where there's water, I will wait. I will not go. I don't care. So then we have fun playtime. And then upon it's time to go, children go first and they go back to their waiting area where their towels are there so they can go and sit, wrap up in their towels. And again, watching parents clean out the pool of all the toys, because toys left in a pool can be a very big reason to go back in. And we're not going to give them any of those reasons. So all the toys get put away, and then the tape, the cones got put back. And again, the children are watching. We're watching our parents close the pool. It doesn't just magically happen. It had to be a visual cue to them to say, no, now we're closed. So once all that was done, then we were given the direction. All right, it's time to, let's go inside. So up off of our mats, out of our waiting area, into the house, close the door, lock the door, alarm the door. So it was a process every single time. So because the yellow caution tape wasn't very great, this is what I came up with.
There you go.
So it says closed, I will wait. And so, when you go to the beach, if we utilize that scenario, this tape, as a family, we're going to decide how close to the water line are we going to allow our kids to be? If they're not in their waiting area, waiting for the next set of instructions, how close are we going to let them be? And this just goes stretched out.
Yeah.
And is that visual reminder, you're not going. When we're going to go in, good, we open it and then we go together. And when we come back, we close it. And so at swimming lessons, I use this in classes. And let me tell you, so I run 30-minute classes back to back to back to back. When we get up and go jump, I'm supposed to remember to close the tape for the next group so the next group can come and sit. Let me tell you how berated I get if I forget. Miss Dayna, you didn't close the pool. I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry about that. No, Miss Dayna, you need to close the pool all the time. Well, can you close it? They're like, no, only the adults can close it. I'm like, God. So I've done it to my own self, but my own students will hold me accountable.
Yes.
Okay. In the bathroom.
Dayna, I have to tell you, if you ever substitute in a kindergarten classroom, that's what it's like.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Those
No,
kids know the routine. They got it down and they will tell
yes.
you if you've got it wrong or are missing
And they
something.
love to do it. I think there's nothing more that they love to hear me say, I'm so sorry I was wrong. Oh, yes. I said it was wrong, you know, and what I'm showing parents is your children are, and again, I start them at 2 years old in my program without parents in the water.
Mm-hmm.
They very quickly know what is required.
Yeah.
And they can do it. When parents say no, they don't understand. Oh no, they absolutely understand. So at home, again, I talk a lot about using the bathtub as a daily way to practice. Where there's water, I will wait. So again, hear me say water. I didn't say pool or lake, or I'm talking about all water. I don't care what the water is, we are waiting for it. So this tape goes wall to wall across the bathtub, and it's up all the time except when we are having a bath. So every time we go in the bathroom, we can talk about it. Oh yeah, it's closed. It's not open. We're not allowed in there. We put it across the handles, so that's closed. We do not turn knobs. We can do it on the sinks. You can do it, I don't care, on the toilet. Wherever your child is very fascinated by the concept of water, you can put that over there. And then again, we create usually in bathrooms, we create a small waiting area. And after a while in the bathrooms, I found that parents don't even need the actual tape for the waiting area because the children know that this is where their bottom goes before and after a bath. So again, we sit on a mat, parents get ready. Shampoo, towels, toys, all the things. And then parents, you put your cell phone down. Mm-hmm. Okay. In my program, I teach where cell phones down so children don't drown. Mm-hmm. They are a huge distraction to us. And I need you to be able to give your child what they deserve in 100% of your undivided attention anytime they are around water. We have a very bad habit. I'm going to, me too. It's not just
totally. We
sit in the bathroom when they're on their in the tub, and and again, it can happen that fast. Mm-hmm. It normally doesn't, but it does happen. Please teach yourself, hold your own self accountable, because your children deserve that. So when we're ready, phones are down, all the things, we open the tape. We invite our child to get in to the bathtub. We bathe, we do swimming lessons in the bathtub. Those are my favorite videos to get. And then bath time is over. We get out, wrap in a towel, back on our mat. We watch, we close, we talk about it. Now it's closed. It's closed. Parents, please do not ever leave the bathroom without making sure your tub is completely drained. Mm. Not that it is draining, that it is empty before you leave that bathroom. Put the toys away. Don't give your children another reason to want to just get back into the tub, water or no water. And then after we leave, I encourage families to, as they leave, and I know this is a pain, to lock your bathroom door and close it behind you until your child truly understands that the bathroom is not a place to hang out in or play in. It's closed. And you can use, again, the tape, and you just put it across the bathroom door.
Yeah. Another layer of
probably get a safety clip and tape it above the door, because you're going to have to put that in there to unlock it. And I know that that's a pain, but you are teaching your child a life skill. The bathroom is not a place to play.
Yeah.
And all it takes is a lapse in watching. You're downstairs putting groceries away and your child is in that bathroom running the water.
Yeah.
Okay. So this system that I've created is really about water. If you go to the pond or to a park where there's a pond, you take this with you. All of it's portable.
Yeah.
You take it and you give your child the chance to practice. We're not always going into water. I had one mom say, she goes, we're not going in that pond. I'm like, no, we're going to teach them that we're not going in that pond.
Yeah.
And the only way they're going to learn these things is to practice them every day. We talk about it. We make an extended effort to go around water every day, different water. So I'll tell you just one funny story. I had a mom sent me a text message. Her little ones were, Sophia was maybe not quite 3 over the summer. And she sent me a message. She goes, oh, you'd be so proud of the girls. We were outside. And Sophia said, oh, where there's water, I will wait. And then the next text, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And the next text was, and this is the water we're talking about. So I thought I'd get a picture of the lake or whatever. It's the girls holding a hose. And they were just holding a hose. But again, if you don't think that children understand that water means water means water, they're going to get it. And with our children with autism, are we going to have to take more time? Yes. Might we have to find different ways to communicate what we are looking for? Yes. Do we need to get out a little sand timer to show them what 30 seconds of waiting means? Yes, maybe we do. And so working with families with all of those intricacies is part of what I do. But in the end, this water safety kit and the video that goes with it is all parents need to get started teaching where there's water. I will wait. I will never go on my own because it's not open and I have not been invited to go in.
Yeah. Beautiful. Like so many of the things that you listed, it's like people might say, well, yeah, but my child or my student is non-speaking and they maybe don't understand what I'm saying. But if you build, I know this from 25 years working with young autistic kids, if you have combined visuals with predictable routines, anybody can learn.
Jackson did.
Some learn it really fast. Some it takes a little longer.
Yeah.
You can have added things in there like a social story explaining your exact system and what works. What I know to be true of what you just explained is it works because it's a system, which makes it predictable. And then you add visuals and yes, I love it.
And it's fun. Like my kids love it. They love when it's time for lessons and I say, okay, I'm ready. When I first start with them, I go get them and I walk them over. But now, we're 12 weeks in. Come on. And they come and they pick their mat that they want to sit on and they sit behind the red tape. And then, together we open it and we talk about it. Is the pool open? Oh, no, Mr. And they talk like me. My boyfriend always says, if I didn't have hands, I couldn't talk. But they're like, oh, no, Mr. It's closed. They're closed. They do that. And the parents laugh. They're like little yous. I'm like, great.
You did your job.
That's what we want. And then together we open the tape. And inevitably one day one of the kids, I'm like, you're going to help us open? They're like, no. I'm like, well, no, that's not an option. Then the pool in front of you is closed.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what we want. So we all open the tape together. We make a little pile. I get in and then I invite them to come down one by one. So I know too that this works. And it's kind of it was an intrinsic knowledge. I'm not trained. I have certification through a program called Autism Swim. I've been teaching kids with autism for a long time. But this is just really what I was meant to do. This was the gift that I've been given. So when I talk to directors at ABA schools, they're like, who helped you create that? I'm like, the whales. The whales helped me create it.
Whales.
They were like, no. Like what autism professional? I'm like, They're like, how did you know?
Intuitively know.
Intuitively know. And I've seen it in action. I know that wait is a powerful word and I know it can be taught. And for me, when I look at water safety, I kind of look at it as an umbrella and how the insides, the ribs of the umbrella, to me, those things are swim lessons and life jackets and what I call adult watching, because we don't use the word supervise. And all those other strategies make up the ribs. We are still getting soaking wet with drownings because the canopy is not there. Right. There is no canopy. And I truly believe that weight is the canopy.
Yeah.
If I can keep children waiting and keep them out of the water, guess what happens? No more drownings.
Yeah. It's
so
true.
For me, that's the component that I am trying to now reach parents across the country with. That, it's not hopeless. You don't have to just go, well, I guess we're susceptible to drowning. We're not. And I will not let you be susceptible to drowning.
That's
not
great.
After we've talked.
And an aha moment I had that I thought, Andy, maybe you could speak to a little bit is putting that in the bathroom. Then every time your child takes a bath, let's say it's every other day, you're getting practice with this, even if you haven't ever gone to the beach yet. What do you think on that, Andy?
Yeah, I love it. And I was reflecting, I've got, again, a 1.5 and a 4.5. So the age disparity is strong at this age. And you think of the capabilities the 4.5-year-old can do versus the 1.5-year-old. But, the bathroom is a wild place. I mean, especially now because the 1.5-year-old's trying to emulate, brushing
Yes.
teeth and just doing everything. And you think about not only the water, but just all the ridiculously hard surfaces. If you slip and trip and fall, you're, busting your head, you're busting your teeth. I mean, it's a dangerous place,
Yeah.
So I was really kind of intrigued by the whole conversation. I like it. It's off limits. I also enjoy, with me, everything is about practice, right? Like if we don't practice this every day, then we're never going to do it when it matters. So the repetition is really a big deal, I think, for overall preparedness, but especially with young kids. They like routine. They like to know what's next. They like to know what's coming. They like predictability.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of the reason it makes my job so hard, because most of these emergencies and disasters are so unpredictable that it's really hard when kids get thrown off those routines. So I think it's great. I think it's great that we're practicing it. They get familiar with it. We're giving them opportunities to actually be a part of it, which is a big token, big thing. Like if they can be a part of it and get the buy-in and take some ownership of it, that makes everything so much easier too. So yeah, I absolutely love it. And I got to say, it's interesting because I know the water in my house. You know what I mean? I know how hot it gets and how fast it gets hot. I'm very comfortable and have made adjustments to the settings so it's a safe environment. But as I travel quite a bit, and a lot of times I take my kiddos with me. And that's always a big thing that makes me nervous is,
Yeah.
is that bathtub going to be just scorching hot at the hotel, or is the Airbnb going to have just some ridiculously dangerous, step or slip or toilet that they could get in and get stuck in? I worry about these things. So I like that hard and fast rule. I like that predictability. We know the rules. We're teaching the kids the rules, which is really our job as adults. And then we're sticking to the rules as well. So I think it's a perfect analogy. I love all the visuals that you created. Not only did they hear the voice, but then they see the visuals. They're tangible. They can touch, they can experience. It really does make it a whole, whole encompassing experience, which I think is awesome.
I think that also all of these things are not just autistic kid
No.
things that you've come up with. It can
No.
be the whole family. All kids would love this kind of fun way to learn like this. So it's not the reason it's great for autistic kids is that predictability and the visual piece.
Yeah.
But this will work for all kids. So awesome.
And that's the way it works in my program, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I run small group classes. Right now, I've got about 240 kids a week in the water. And I would say 20% of my program are children who, what I call, are my special learners, whatever that looks like. I even have some children that I know will be in that category. They're just not there yet with a diagnosis.
Yeah.
I'm running what I call early intervention swim lessons because I start them so young. So my kids, whether or not they have a diagnosis or not, are learning these exact same skills. So they don't grow up knowing anything different.
Yeah.
They haven't gone to swimming lessons. Well, that's not true. Some of them have been in swim lessons before, and they've not learned these things. When I get an email from a parent saying we would like to come and swim with you because we love that you're teaching water safety, that tells me I am finally making that delineation for people, and they're understanding they are two separate things that must work together. And that's not even really true. Swimming lessons, you can have swim lessons or not have swim lessons and still be doing this piece of it as well. And I know we kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about swim lessons, but maybe we're a little off topic on this.
Yeah. No,
all over the place.
I think just naturally throughout this conversation, we've touched on so many things that I was really hoping to get to and highlight. And I think within swimming lessons, we should just do another podcast episode just
Well,
about that.
we can. And I would love to do that because that's a topic I talk on for an hour.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Let's do that. But parents, if you are listening to this and you're either in a program that is not producing any results, or you're looking at being part of a program, I have a download on my website. It's a free download. It's called the 10 questions every parent should ask before signing up for a swim lesson program. It's a really important document. And I'm just going to share with you the first question, because most parents go, what? Swim lesson instructors in the United States do not need to be certified. Okay, nothing. There is no requirement, no mandating, no record keeping, nothing. So a facility, and I'm not picking on the YMCA, but the Y or a city facility can say, in order to be hired to teach lessons, you have to be certified. Okay, they can say that. But if that's a facility that does not choose to say that, there is nobody making them say that. Okay. Wow. Secondly, you want to ask if your child's instructor or the potential instructor is certified and trained to work with children with autism. Again, if you are getting a 16-year-old instructor with no training and has no idea about autism, you're going to set your child up for failure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to help you do the research so that you can find an appropriate program for your child. I'm not saying that getting a certification on a piece of paper makes you an awesome instructor. And I'm not saying that somebody, who's just come into this as a former swimmer and naturally drawn to this won't be amazing. I'm not saying that. I'm not, slapping paint on one way or the other. What I am saying is ask the questions and educate yourself on these things. But so I've got 9 other questions. And again, I'm happy to help parents navigate this. Please don't ask me, well, I live in Chicago. Do you know an instructor? The answer is no, I don't. But I will guide you in how to hopefully find the instructor that you're working for. But, let's have a hour-long conversation just about that. I think parents would really like some answers. And they deserve those answers as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, we're going to do a lightning round, Mythbuster, true, false. So you guys can both just yell out true or false. I think most of these things
have you
we've already
learned? I don't do one-word answers. I gotta do all the words.
I think we've talked about all these, so we
okay,
we
good.
don't have
It
to
should
go
be
into
easy.
it. Okay, my child is non-speaking, so swim lessons are not possible.
Not true.
False.
All right. We don't live near a pool, so drowning is not a concern for us.
False.
Not true. You have a bathtub.
Doesn't need to be a pool.
Nope.
All right. Awesome. I'm so glad with these questions that we've answered them all. Once a child can swim, they're safe around water.
False.
Oh, not all water's created equal, right?
No.
And skills can fade, by the way, too. I'm not the best swimmer like I used to be, right? With my 20s, boy, I could swim. Now I don't know.
And, the analogy, one of my other co-partners says, if Michael Phelps fell down and smacked his head and went unconscious, it doesn't matter how good a swimmer he is, he will still drown. So again, it's swimming, being able to swim. It's one strategy. We cannot put all of those eggs in that basket and go, well, we're good now. Yeah. That doesn't work.
You're right. Okay. If my child doesn't like water, I don't need to worry about a drowning risk.
False. It's not about water love. It's about wandering, right?
Yeah.
And it's not. So again, see, I can't do anything in one word. I don't even know how to do that. One of the things, again, I'm trying to really get to the bottom of why is this what I call uncontrolled water? What is happening that this becomes the place that the most of these drownings took place? Here's one scenario that I've come up with. And I'd love your feedback on this. So let's talk about a pond or like a retention pond, something where if you stand on one side of it, you can see the other side. I think what's happening is our children do not know deep and shallow. They don't know that when they go into that water, they're not just going to be able to get to the other side. Or if there's a fountain in the middle, that they're not just going to be able to get there. They don't understand that concept. And I have to think that is a part of it. So one of the things that I'm trying to develop within my program again is helping parents teach their children we can go into water to our belly button and then we leave. We've got to turn around at that point. There's still something parents are like, well, what happens when we're in a pool up to their belly button? Okay.
Yeah.
Then there's the distinction between a pool water and uncontrolled water. So I still have some things to sort out there. But another component is teaching your children they will never go into water with clothing on. Ever. Don't ever take your child in and, oh, this time we're in shorts and a t-shirt. No, because you're going to teach them clothes are okay.
Yeah.
I've almost gone so far, well, not almost, I have gone so far as to tell a parent that they will wear the same swim clothing to every swim lesson and every time you're in the water, and you're going to show it to them. Here's our swim clothes. Now we can go into the water because we have this outfit on. We don't have a different outfit, which again, children with autism tend to like because we like same. We like the order of it, but there is something missing in what I'm trying to create to help mitigate some of these other things, because that is a big one. I truly believe that they don't know deep and shallow. And then once they get in too deep, we don't know what to do. So helping navigate that world is something that I'm really working on. But it has nothing to do with whether or not they like the water. They might like the fountain that's in the middle of the water. And to get to that, I've got to go through this awful thing called water.
Well, and preferences can shift overnight, right? So,
that's true. And you also had talked earlier about they're not necessarily, it might look like they're afraid of water, but they're not maybe necessarily afraid. They just don't like some aspect or something.
And when we are motivated on something, we can put that uncomfortableness aside to get to what it is that we are in search of.
If it's motivating
at all costs.
It could be a toy or a ball or anything that's, now they're in pursuit of that item. And,
and not realizing
you could leave 30 toys inside of your pool and none of those I'm not interested in any of those. And then you have one noodle in the pool and now we're going back in after that. So, parents, help yourselves and remove as many of those motivating factors as you can around water. Like in the bathtub, don't leave toys in the bathtub. Put them, hide them if you have to. If that's a motivating factor, put them in a bucket and put them up where they can't get them. But don't let them see where you put them because then they climb. Motivating factors.
One more. Adaptive swim lessons, whether it's, water safety or swim, or hopefully both, are only for kids who are verbal.
Not true.
False.
Yeah. I think you showed that with your stories and the visuals and okay. So ending today, like what is your one piece? I know this is multi-layered, right? But what's one piece of advice or a place to start? Dayna.
Search out information that provides you a full, complete picture of water safety and drowning prevention. You can't get stuck on one of the ribs of the umbrella. On my website, I have something called a water safety action plan, different than the communication thing. But, much like we have a fire exit strategy for our home, this will walk families through 8 different things that I want you to consider as you are working on truly a water safety and drowning prevention picture, the complete one.
Yeah. And Andy, what do you think?
Well, first off, look, being a parent doesn't come with a guidebook. So if you're here today and you found it, and I hope you found the conversation really interesting and insightful, because I certainly have, and I love being with you guys. I always learn new stuff, which is fantastic. Preparedness, it's not about being perfect, right? It's about progress. It's about taking a small step, then the next, until you build a strong safety net. I think you've heard us say it at least 3 or 4 times. It's all about being layers of tools like door chimes, layers of tools like awareness, fences, alarms, skills, everything from knowing to wait, which I wish every child knew how to wait. I'm working on that
I'm
with my
working on
kids.
it, Andy. I'm working on it.
Well, come on up. We're not too far away. Grabbing the edge, learning to stay close, learning when to go, when it's closed, when it's open. Also, layers of communication. As we mentioned, get to know your neighborhood, get to know those in your community. This is definitely a problem that we can all try to pitch in to solve. And of course, with the child themselves, that repetition, that consistency, that routine, all of that helps build trust, helps build knowledge, helps build life skills. And I think importantly, it helps build understanding. So having those conversations with our families, with our childcare providers, with our swim instructors to make sure that we're being consistent on the messaging, I think is super important as well. We certainly recognize, look, every child can be different. And that's not a big deal. Like there's ways to handle all of this. Some don't understand danger. Some may be nonverbal. Some are drawn to water because it's soothing and safe. It's really where our approach here really matters. How do we frame safety in a way that's meaningful and impactful and consistent with the child? We repeat, we model, we praise, we do all those things to really we don't just put up barriers, right? We don't just put up the fence and say, okay, that's it. We try to build understanding through all of these different engagements. So if you're listening and you feel overwhelmed, that wasn't our goal at all. We hope that that this was helpful. We want you to hear this. You don't need to solve everything today. This is not a race. You don't have to do it all at once. Take some of these things today and take one small step, one small action. It might just be as simple as putting the door chime on your door or locking that back gate, or just, again, that risk evaluation of knowing what's around your area, your childcare program, your home, all of that kind of good stuff. And that's really where the empowerment begins. You're not helpless. You're not hopeless. This is something that we can completely control as adults. We owe it to ourselves to control it, but I think more importantly, we owe it to the kids that we're entrusted with, whether that's our own kids or the kids that we're serving in our early childhood education programs. That's the really big thing that we need to focus on here and try to be the difference here, right? Because that's, at the end of the day, it's not a heavy lift. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but this kind of little small steps can really make a huge difference. So I really appreciate being a part of the discussion today. Again, I learned so much. I love the passion and the energy. And I hope we can solve this problem, because I think it is solvable. Just a little bit more time, attention, and resources would really, really make this go a long way.
I agree.
Yeah. And, both Dayna and Andy have talked about what they do and resources. So we will have everything in the show notes, links, so you can check out both of them. As Andy alluded to, he thinks about lots of different safety things, and whether it comes to tornadoes or just anything, hot cars. So you'll definitely want to check out the Institute of Childhood Preparedness too. And as heavy and scary as this topic can feel, I think we all want to leave you with a message of hope that there are tools. You're not alone in this. And it's really easy to become overwhelmed and scared when you hear the statistics, but we don't have to do everything all at once. And that's what you're saying, Andy. We just need to take one step forward. It might be looking into Dayna's water safety programs or the kit. It could be looking into adaptive swim lessons, adding door alarms, visual supports. So just having this conversation if you're a teacher, have this conversation with parents, send them this episode, and vice versa. If you're a parent, send it to your school, because just because you don't have a pool at your school, this actually is something we need to think about more in classrooms, because you're like, oh, we don't have water, we don't have to worry about drowning. But if a child leaves your classroom and wanders or elopes, it very well could be a big issue. So share the episode with friends or family members. And thank you, Dayna and Andy, for the incredible work that you're doing and the dedication to creating these programs and resources and strategies, because you're making a huge, huge difference. We can't prevent every danger in the world, but we can create like these safety plans and teach skills. So just take a deep breath and know that you're doing your best. The support is out there, and we're in this together. Thank you, you guys, so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.